All right, Unreal's building. Real quick video. I have two cams here. I'm going to show you the next step of a little project I have. I was trying to, not copy, but take inspiration from Mage Arena, where you have a game that's PvP purely, pretty much, and it's people casting spells with their voice, and so you have voice-activated speech, and you have VoIP, voice over internet protocol, so different players can hear each other, and it's hosted by individual players, so you don't have to have some dedicated server that you have to worry about. It's just by the player, and it being multiplayer. So basically multiplayer, so people are playing with each other, they're hearing each other, and they're casting spells with their voices. Perfect timing. Unreal's opening. Basically there's a plugin called the Sphinx Unreal Engine plugin, and I installed that because it was pretty useful. Hold on. This guy here. And long story short, it gives you some blueprints and C++ you can fuck around with, and basically speak some words, and the game will detect and convert your words into a string. So if I say big dog, it will spit out big dog as the full string, the string including spaces. So if I said big black dog would be 3 separate words with spaces and 1 string. And the thing is, I can use that string to, one, I can use the speaking as an event to trigger something, but I can use the string to determine which logic to trigger. So here's the example. We have speech up in here. We initialize it when the game starts. It doesn't matter. It's fine. We have this event that happens every time I speak in the game. So we have the game. We'll just do one server right here. And we'll say Fireball. Fireball is one spell, and it triggers this event. And sure, I could have shown you better by having a breakpoint there. Fireball. Boom. So we can see that the breakpoint triggers, which means this event is actually triggering. And what happens is we check the string. Well, really, for each of the string, let me see. In case it really doesn't matter, this really doesn't need to be an array. It's really spitting out one string. Pretend this is spitting out one string, okay? And we're looking at that one string, and we are comparing it to these. I guess that's just how it is. It spits out an array of strings. It really should just be one string. I can't imagine a case where it's multiple strings, because even if you have pauses between words, it would still come out at like the really, 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 really big fireball would spit out one. It would spit out, I guess, an array of one element. That's the really, really big fireball. And then we would just be looking at that element. We're printing it just for debug purposes. And then we're switching on it. So we're taking that known value and converting and checking it compared to other known values. Is the word that I just said fireball? Is it fire blast? Is it magic missile? If it is, it will cast the respective spell. It will trigger that respective logic, which is replicated on the server. So the server is running the spell and spawning the fireball, or spawning the fire blast object. These are separate objects, and inside those objects they have their own animations, their own Niagara systems, and they have to be animated in their own blueprints, because otherwise if you animate them in the player, basically you can't, if 2 people cast spells and this player sets a Niagara system to be true, the other player will not see that Niagara system. So you basically have to put it in the object. I need to think more so I can fully understand it, but that's my interpretation. You basically have to put the Niagara system inside the object, so you can see here I'm not fucking around with any Niagara stuff. I'm just spawning in the object, and the object, can I find it? Yeah, here we go. We can look in the object, and when Fire Blast is spawned, it has a sound, cool. It sets the sound, does whatever, because they're different sounds. And actually, in this case, it's going to get bigger and bigger, and then eventually it's going to hit and do stuff. But let me see where the Niagara system is. Here, over 5 seconds, the Niagara system is being updated. If we do Fireball instead, oh, fuck. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why I did that. If we go to Fireball, we'll see, okay, it actually, I don't have it. Never mind. It's because the Niagara system is actually starting on, whenever it gets created, the Niagara is automatically there. So we can see it doesn't have any velocity right now, so you can't see any particle effects coming from behind it. There's no trail right now. Like if this was actual motion, then you would see it with a trail behind it of fire, just like in the game where we can say Fireball. Okay, so the point here is this. There was a bug. The bug was when you have multiple people on the server works. People can hear each other. It's great. Works. People can connect. It's hosted via Steam. It's awesome. Great. Steam is the middleman, basically, that bridges the connection. Really, someone is hosting, and the other person is joining through Steam. So it's not peer-to-peer straight away exposing each other's IPs, apparently. Apparently, it's all through Steam, so that stuff is hidden. Meaning that I could hand this exe out to whoever I wanted, and as long as they both are logged into Steam, boom, they can both, one person can host, the other can join. Awesome, you could host. It would be publicly available, and other people could join, and then boom, cool. So, just like Mage Arena, I'm pretty sure. Unless it's a dedicated server, but I don't think it is. I think it's hosted by the host. Right now, if the host left, the game would terminate. I don't know how to make it so that the host swaps, but I can find out how to do it. I don't know how yet, but I'll learn. That'll be not the next step because I want to focus on functionality, and then that'll come after. Okay, so basically there was a bug. Two people could join the same server, and when two people were in a server, here I'll show you an example. Actually, I can't show you the exact one, but I can at least. Sorry, wrong thing. I'm clicking on things wrong. I'm waiting on the food to hit my system. All right, while this is loading, I'm gonna go over here. Okay, so both games are gonna be loading. I don't know why the other version right now is fully black. I'm not super sure why, but I've created a game. We can see some stuff on the top left. I missed what I was saying a second ago, but then we can find a game and search. I just followed a tutorial to create multiplayer, and it works. And I verified this by doing a hotspot on my phone so that we were on different IPs. Yeah, it's a little jank, but I can figure out how to make it better. It's what it is for now. It's okay. Let's see how it looks for the other. Okay, yeah, it's still a little wacky, but I can figure out how to improve it. The problem was this. Fireball. Right now, you can see that only this character used the fireball. Actually, shit, you can't see the other thing. Here you go. Right, so right now, yeah, you should be able to see both. So, fireball. But now, I'm going to mute this microphone. So what happened was I was still saying fireball, but I was muting this one, because if I say fireball, like this, both will trigger because my laptop over on the other table hears me, as does this mic. But if I mute this mic and I say it, you can see that spells are unique. One person can cast them at a time. The issue earlier is that this plugin is implemented at the world level, basically. There's this thing called there's this thing called a subsystem, and it's basically this little item of logic that's contained that is created whenever something gets spawned in. For example, the player controller owns something called a local player, and whenever a local player is spawned in, basically whenever a character spawns in the game, because a character has a player controller, and a player controller owns a local player, so when a character spawns, it spawns a local player. Same thing ish. Well, the point is that local player has that local player, whenever it is created, it can have a bunch of different local player subsystems. And we'll see it right here. Local player subsystem. And a local player subsystem is created whenever the local player is created. And when is it created? Each subsystem has a little should function. Should create subsystem. This is the same in every subsystem. It always says should create subsystem. Basically, the local player will say, should I create this subsystem? If yes, then it will create that subsystem. In this case, I messed around with some logic. I basically made it so it always returns true because I don't think this actually matters. I don't think this needs to be commented out, but it's fine for now. It doesn't matter. I don't even need to talk about it. Basically, there are these subsystems. The problem was that this plugin is implemented at the world level. So instead of this logic mostly being implemented, there's a lot of other different files that we don't need to touch, but a really important one is the actual speech recognition subsystem. If we look into Unreal, where is Unreal? Here. If we look into Unreal and we look into the character, we'll see this speech recognition subsystem. And if I click it, it goes right here. What is it? We can see it's a local player subsystem in this case. The plugin is implemented using a ue world subsystem. What that means is this. Multiple people inside one world, one person speaks, and the world subsystem hears and spits out the strings. But because it's the world will make both, the world will trigger on word spoken, this word spoken trigger, or maybe it's word spoken, there's another one, word spoken method, I'm not sure which one. It will use word spoken for everybody, for the whole world. Instead of it being, oh, you have Jimmy and Johnny over here, and Jimmy says a word, and his subsystem says, okay, I've recognized the word, cast your spell. And then over here, Johnny has his own subsystem, and when he says fireball, then his subsystem will say, okay, let's fireball. Perfect. The issue there is it's implemented in the world. So whenever one person says fireball, the world will see, oh, someone said fireball. Well, guess what? Everyone is going to trigger fireball because the player gets information from the world subsystem, which means every player gets information from the world subsystem. So instead of each player having their own subsystem, right? Player, subsystem, player, subsystem, player, subsystem. It's player, 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 world subsystem. And whenever this guy casts whatever, some spell, the subsystem hears the player, recognizes the word, spits out the string, and triggers the word spoken for everybody, because everybody's listening to the world. So even though this guy over here, person A, B, and C, guy A, B, and C, and guy A speaks, the world subsystem hears him and triggers word spoken for everybody because everybody's using the world subsystem. So what I did is I was hoping that this would work, and it did. I had to fuck around to figure out how it actually happens, but I had to switch the world subsystem to be local subsystem. I had to, let's see what else I had to do in here real quick. Most of this I didn't have to change. Most of this was just left as is, like 99%. Probably more than 99%. It was really easy stuff. It just took me a while because I had never opened up Unreal C++ before. I'm only used to the 5 or 6, 7 months or something like that in C++. That's it. I haven't dealt with any of these predetermined, pre-built things in Unreal, so I didn't know how this would work. So I changed some of the logic here so that the subsystem is always created. It always returns true. And if it's going to return true, then really, if it's supposed to create the subsystem, then not only will it return true, it's also going to say, hey, the subsystem is returning true, which means it should be valid. And then I have some other checks as well. Oh, another thing I did. Okay, it's too hot. The reason that the subsystem was a world subsystem is because instead of, I mentioned a local player and a player controller before, instead of it being implemented like that, which it now is, it was implemented as the world, so local player subsystem, local player, player controller. Before it was world subsystem, game state. No player controller, no player anything. It was just games, and I guess no, that was it. It was literally game state, because from the game state we get world, and then there's the world subsystem. So there's basically the world version and then the player version, the local player version and the world version. So what I did was I literally copied all of the logic verbatim from the game state base here. This is a class that inherits from game state base. So it's a game state base. It's just customized. It's its own class, but that's what it inherits from. And it had all this logic, these properties and these functions and all this shit. And it had all these checks and whatnot, so that when it's created, it creates that subsystem, and then boom, it goes. So I copied that and I made, at first, what did I do? At first, I tried to put it into the player, and that wasn't working. I tried to put it into the player controller, that wasn't working. And then I went into the game mode in Unreal, and I was looking, I was like, what is in a game mode? What are the options here? And I saw game session, that's the whole session. I don't want to do that. Everybody, if they're listening to the session, everyone gets the same info. The event's going to get triggered for everybody again. Game state, that's where it currently is. Everybody listens to the same game state. So there's no individual speech behavior. There's no individual conversations, no individual links between player and his speech subsystem. It's all every player in the whole world. Player controller, I tried that. Player state, what is that? And I looked up the player state and it said, oh shit, the player state is something that gets created for each player in the game that tracks their info. So if a player gets moved from one world to the next, let's say you're playing Dark and Darker and you're in the overworld, right? And you're in the main dungeon, and then you go to hell and you go to the next dungeon, even though your character, I think, might get destroyed, your player state might not. So the point is that we could preserve your inventory and move you from one level to the next without fucking things over. I don't think... Ignore that, because here we're also still... I think... Not exactly sure there. But long story short, each player has its own player state, but the game has its own game state. So we want a player state. We want something that's local to each player, and that's where the recognition should happen, so that you are not privy to other people's speech. So if someone casts some healing spell, everybody in the game does not cast the fucking healing spell. It's only that guy casting the healing spell, right? So what I did was I literally just copy and pasted the code, created 2 C++ classes. You can just go into Unreal, and then Tools, New C++ class. I chose to make it inherit from player state, and it populated all this basic info. I think it was just this. And all I did was I literally copied the remaining logic from the game state into the player state, and from the game state header file into the player state header file, and then let's see. I moved the player state to be located here. At first, Unreal will create the player state and move it where all your other C++ classes are. The problem is there's some crazy C# shit that I don't understand, and it basically, there are some private include paths, meaning we have these, well, we don't have any here, but we have these header files, these includes, this code that we are bringing into here. We're bringing declarations of functions and everything into here. That way the compiler and the linker are happy and our program works. The problem is I didn't know you could do this. You can actually use, I guess, a build.cs file or some other file and restrict where files can be included from, meaning that these files here, these header files, can actually be made kind of private so that they can't, even though they're in this public folder, they're not other C++ files outside of these folders, outside of the speech recognition folder, I think, cannot include them. Only files within the speech recognition folder can include these header files. So when I was including them in the player state, it was saying red underneath here, unable to include speech recognition.h. The player state shit worked, core minimal was fine, this is all default stuff that Unreal put in, but these weren't working. Well, I just fucking I was trying to mess around with it and change where the paths were, and I put in these different locations. Fucking nothing. I couldn't get it to work. That's another thing for another time. So I just fucking moved the files in here. Player state, player state. Boom. Here are the definitions. Here are the declarations. Cool. So, or at least some of the definitions, and then the implementation here. So, and technically the game state bases still exist, but they're fully commented out, so they're useless. After I moved all the code in here, I had some sort of dependency issues with Unreal. It was like new git pack dependencies are vulnerable, and I had to click get them or something, and I had to click uninstall for the current version of something I had, and I had to reinstall some new version of, I'm not sure, some sort of .NET framework, not Microsoft stuff, not my computer's up to date on everything. It took forever to get C++ working, and I got everything. But Unreal itself needed some sort of new C++ dependencies. I don't know. I got them, and my project started to build, but then it would stop, and it stopped because of some redefinition error, basically meaning that it said in this player state that this speech recognition player state constructor, the thing that is called whenever we create a speech recognition player state, you call the constructor of the class, and that constructor actually instantiates an object of the class and initializes it with this, whatever this object initializer is, and this other one. Or let's see. I don't like this direct initialization. I like braces. I don't like these, but whatever. So it basically says, okay, it initializes something, some super shit with object initializer, and it initializes the language with this. I think, trying to see what happens here. Because super should just be the class that's being inherited from, right? Let's see. Yeah, because this inherits from a player state, so super should just be player state. So I'm not really sure. Maybe that's the point. The point is that when you're creating a player state, you're passing in the object. Actually, maybe, you know, maybe that's what this is. Super isn't a thing that exists already. Super needs to be made to exist. Meaning this. When we create this player state, when we call it, we need to say whatever a super is. That way, if I'm going to use super later on, we know what super is. So we're initializing super with, I think, the object that's creating this. I'm not really sure. Honestly, I'm not really sure. I was getting a redefinition error. It was basically saying that, hey, this constructor is being defined in two places. One is here, and one is somewhere else. Well, the only other place it was in here. And actually, hold on. It wasn't actually anywhere else. It was only once. I was wondering, how is this thing being redefined if it only exists once? The problem is this generated body macro that expands to some crazy shit. Let me see. Right in the middle, like right here-ish. A speech recognition player state. I don't know why this is a reference, but I guess. Okay, reference. Long story short, this generated body thing is expanding to create a constructor for this, which means that we have one constructor here for this class, but then we have another constructor here. We have another constructor here, and I think the problem, excuse me again. I think the problem was that they both use the same initializer. So this one uses an object initializer here. So it's, when we look at the function signature, you see speech recognition player state, and in parentheses, it takes one object initializer, or one F object initializer reference. But here, I think this does the same. Let's see. There's a lot of the stuff that I don't understand. Basically, this was another definition here. What this means is that it looked like, let's see. It looked like this guy was being defined twice here. And the problem there is, instead of this being a forward declaration and then being defined here, it was instead being defined here one way in this generated body and being defined here another way. And it was, I guess, an ambiguous call, because you can have multiple constructors, but you can't have multiple constructors that take the same parameters. Yes. So, I used AI for a second. I really don't trust AI and I dislike using it, but I used it and it said that sometimes this generated body creates, it fills in the gaps of what's missing, and it ends up putting a definition in there, and we don't actually want it because we already have it defined. The problem is we don't have a declaration. So this thing will generate a declaration if we don't already have one. So what does it need? We need a declaration for our definition, because we basically have declaration, definition, definition. What we really just want is one declaration for our definition that already exists right here. No body, but it has an initializer list right here. So what did I do? I just created a public constructor. Boom. Project builds. The project builds, and then in the player state, I added some extra checks that I didn't like how it was written in the plugin. It was a lot of multiple conditions together like this, but I didn't like it. So basically we say, okay, create a player controller. Store it as whoever the hell is owning a player state. Well, apparently a player controller should own a player state. Okay, so if we get a player controller here, and we cast it to see if it's a player controller, and it is, this guy should be valid and get that value. Cool, we have a player controller now. If our player controller is valid, which it should be, right here, then print the player controller is valid. Cool, it is. Now we need a local player. We need a local player. So what do? I'm going to create a local player, rather a pointer to a local player, and I'm going to get my controller, and player controllers have a built-in data member, a member function, that returns the player. All you do is get local player. Boom. They have a pointer to a local player. So we get the local player and store it. Awesome. Is the local player valid? Yes. What does that mean? We're going to print local player is valid, just as a check. That way, whenever I run the game, cool, I can see what's going on. And then, what do we finally need? We need a speech recognition subsystem. So what do? We create a pointer to one, and then we get, we get the owning local player, which is just our local player. And what does a local player have? A local player subsystem, which is exactly what this is, a local player subsystem. So our local player subsystem should have a subsystem. How do we get it? We literally call the built-in the built-in member function that all local players have, called get subsystem. What type? See brackets here? What type are we trying to get? This type, a speech recognition subsystem, type of subsystem, type of local player subsystem. And finally, if that local player subsystem is valid, and is not null pointer, and the speech recognition subsystem was initialized with the language, I guess this was already pre-written, then cool, print, it's valid and initialized. So not only do we have a valid controller and a local player, we also have our valid speech recognition subsystem. Cool. And then finally, if this should say word list, I don't know why it says world list. I think the guy who made this plugin made a misspelling mistake and he just kept it. Fuck it. I'll keep it 2 for now. So if the optional world list is empty, is false, meaning that it is not empty, then we should enable keyword mode. I don't know what that means, but it should be picking up words. If it is empty, then it should not. So this is, if it is not empty, we do it. And then I guess we call this subsystem initialized guy. Cool. And if it's not valid, or if it's valid but it's not initialized, we say he's not valid. I don't really care about this part. It's not valid. So we're checking what's valid. Is the controller valid? Is the local player valid? Is the local player subsystem valid? Fuck yeah. Everything's valid. We're good to go. Speech recognition subsystem's valid. We're gonna not save any of this. Too late. I'm gonna have to go into GitHub desktop and oops, not Dropbox. Oh, I'm cooked. You're about to see some crazy shit. Here it comes. Fuck. I'm gonna have to delete this video. You know what? Well, oh wait, no, I won't because it's all right. We're good. So, I don't want my private stuff too far out there. So we have, and then I packaged it, and the game is working. So here, so there's a gnat. So here it is, Fireball. Oh my god, you can hear me. I don't like that. That's terrible. Ooh, all right. So this game has push to talk, and right now I have it so that I can hear myself. I shouldn't. I think I need to undo that. But wait, I'm not sure. Oh, I did. I think I do have that on as a test. Isn't that? I mean, I can find out. It's in the character. Listen to own voice. Okay, good. It's on. If it wasn't, I would be scared. So, wait, this is... Bro, what is that? Is it a flying ant? What's big? I don't know what that... Okay, I didn't get it. I missed. Alright. So the shit works. We have our two separate characters on two separate computers, and it could be on two separate, whatever, fucking countries, I guess. Both have Steam open. And now, I'm gonna go on the other, I'm gonna mute this microphone, and I'm gonna talk on the other one, and I'm gonna listen to myself, and I should be able to hear this other character walking around me with proximity chat working. As a test. Excuse me. Okay, that was fucking cringe and annoying, and it hurt, and that was bad. But so proximity chat works, and it's directional, which is nice. Well, I don't know why that happened. Oh, did I middle? No, I didn't. I didn't even middle click. Fireball. It's doing both right now, but if we do now that only triggers for him because I turned this mic off. So. Two separate characters in a server. One person hosts, the other one joins. I'm gonna swap, and I'm gonna do the same thing the other way just to check. So, let's see. We'll do create a game, and then join it up over here. Fireball. 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 Uh-oh. Wait, maybe we might be cooked. Fireball. Fireball. Okay, I'm not sure why it wasn't working earlier. What if I'm gonna leave real quick. Fireball. Hold on. Fireball. Okay, it's working. I don't know, I was screwing it up, I guess. Okay, I don't know why it's loading so fast now. The server refresh, or the time to join a server used to take, it was way longer. I don't know why it's so, I'm hoping these are just things that I can tweak in here to make it not so damn laggy. Fireball. Fireball. Oh. Let me mute and then just get hit. Yeah, so this shit works. I mean, the server latency is a little wonky, and maybe this just isn't possible, but I mean, so far so good. Game with multiple people who can join. Speech recognition works for each person. It has push to talk. Well, it has push to talk doesn't matter, but it has and actually you don't want push to talk. I don't want you to be able to hide your words. I want you to have to speak. And what else? I think that might be it. Yeah? Okay, fuck it. That's it. So my next fuck, now I kind of want to improve the multiplayer latency and whatnot, just to, I don't know, figure out these animations and how to make things run better. I don't know, I don't know if there's something that I can just tweak to make it so that everything is smoother or what, but because, I mean, you could see how well, it's hard to tell, honestly. There, I'll do it on the other, because the other computer just sucks, so I can't really look at it there. Wait. It's honestly not even as bad as I thought. Why did I think it was so bad? Fireball. 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 Okay, it does seem like it's like reduced, it's like 10 frames a second or something for the enemy's fireball. I'm gonna just do it, let's test. Fireball. I see? Fireball. And actually, the server itself is kind of, oh, but this is the one that's hosting it too, so I wonder. So if we create a server and then join back. And then do fireball. Okay, so it's perfectly smooth on this one. Wait, what? Hello? Oh, what the fuck? Fireball. Fireball. Okay, so maybe it's actually, I think it's actually just bad depending on the host. I think the receiver is just getting, it seems like there's maybe a way that we can push data to the people faster. I don't know. It seems like maybe there's some default setting that it's using that's bad. It's like here. Oh, it actually is kind of, I don't remember who's hosting. I'm pretty sure I'm hosting on my actual, I'm pretty sure I'm hosting on the main computer. I mean, this isn't terrible. I mean, maybe, yeah, but the animations aren't just, the animations shouldn't be so janky. Like, they're just jagged. It's like they have anti-aliasing or something. I mean, you can see how smooth that is, but then this, it's like a stop motion picture or something. I'm not sure. I'm hoping those are just parameters I can tweak, and I kind of want to smooth that out first. I think that's what I'm going to do before I start adding other spells. I really want to just get into the content, but I'm now kind of obsessing over just the minimum viable product just to make sure that I can make something that is smooth. Because it's smooth if you're not joining over the network, but we'll see. A lot of Googling to come. So, and then both people get kicked out of the game, and nice. So, that is it for now. Progress. This is just like a little test project I want to make. I want to make a real, like, Dark and Darker kind of VR game as like my main 6-month. Oh, fuck. Well, that's time. As my main like 6-month project, because in 1 month I'll have 6 months left until I need to find a new job. Because I want to get into the industry quick, fast, mega quick. So, yes, things. And in the meantime, I also want to have I want to fully ship, just release for free, a little PvP spell game, magic-y kind of guys fighting each other. And I'm not going to fuck around with graphics or anything at all right now, but I hope that none of this saved. I mean, that shouldn't have saved, right? I don't think I made any changes. Alright, I think we're good. I'll just build a test. Alright, that's it. I've been rambling too much, sorry.